Multiple personality disorder is a disease that has recently been brought back to light thanks to the M. Night Shyamalan film Split and its subsequent sequel, Glass. The actor James McAvoy plays a man with this condition, one that makes him capable of switching between multiple personalities. Today, we're going to take a look at 5 cases of people with multiple personality disorder or dissociative identity disorder. Kim Noble is believed to have 20 different personalities, though it is claimed that she has manifested more than 100 identities. She was born in England. During her childhood, she was mentally and physically abused. Bear in mind that most people with this disorder usually point to their childhood as the source of bad memories. It is believed that the identity of a person, if fragmented, is a result of trauma that usually occurs during childhood, at a time when the child's identity is being developed. If a child is physically or psychologically abused at an early age, his own brain begins to fragment its identity. Some of Kim's personalities are Judy, a 15-year-old girl who's a bulimic and a devout Catholic, Ken, a depressed man, and Bonnie, a loving mother. Another one of her personalities is called John, who thinks he still lives in 1997. The strange thing about Kim's case is that she is an artist, and many of her personalities share the love for art, though each of them have different tastes. She owns multiple pieces of art that represents each of her personalities, as if each one was created by a different artist. She has also gotten into trouble with the law due to one of her personalities having criminal tendencies, and ends up associating with undesirables. She currently has her disorder under control. In 1957, the film The Three Faces of Eve was released. This movie took inspiration from the case of Chris Costner Sizemore. It is believed that she had manifested about 22 different personalities. Chris came from a good family, never suffered any psychological or physical abuse. However, just barely 2 years old, she witnessed a lifeless person being removed from a ditch. This was the stone that fragmented her personality. Remember that most split personalities happen in order to protect the person. As a little girl, she could not understand what was happening, and her identity was fragmented, so she could not remember the traumatic event. Many years later, after giving birth, she began to manifest these multiple personalities. One of them even tried to take the life of one of her children, but she was able to control herself. Chris saw more than 8 psychiatrists in a span of 20 years, and manifested more personalities at the same time. It is believed that in 1974, doctors were able to help her fuse some of these personalities. What was once thought to be impossible was achieved, and that is to solve, or at least control, this disorder. In 1976, a TV miniseries named Sybil premiered. This miniseries was inspired by the real-life case of Shirley Manson, who had manifested 16 personalities. Shirley was born in Minnesota in 1923 and was physically and psychologically abused by her mother since she was a child. Her case of dissociative disorder was so severe that she would lose consciousness and wake up in a different city with absolutely no recollection of how she got there. Shirley sought professional help, but very little was known about this disorder at the time. During her therapies, she manifested 16 different identities, though later she claimed that some of these were fake. Her case garnered notoriety, and because of the falsity of some of her identities, the public began to doubt the truthfulness of the disorder. They did not believe that this condition was real, that it could be something that was provoked by the psychiatrists themselves. It is for this reason that this disease is diagnosed very carefully. If the psychiatrist is inexperienced, they can confuse false identities with real ones, or worse, can cause identity disorder in some patients who did not have the condition in the first place. Robert Oxnam was apparently the exception to many of the stereotypes of this condition. He was never abused as a child, though some say he was. While working in China, he developed a deep depression that turned him into an alcoholic. When he decided to deal with his drinking problem, his first personality, named Tommy, appeared. Soon after, more than 10 different personalities emerged, all of them angry or sad, showing the worst of his life. Robert wrote a book titled A Fragmented Mind. Here is where it was revealed that he was abused as a child. His book is one of the most famous in regards of having to live with this condition. Today, Robert was able to reduce his personalities to just 3. Bob, a happy man who loves skating, Wanda, a Buddhist woman, and Robert, his main identity. Robert is an advocate of this disease and seeks help for those with the same condition. Billy Milligan is one we have talked about before. It is believed that he was the inspiration of James McAvoy's character Kevin in Split. He was notorious in the 70s for kidnapping 3 women. However, each of his victims testified to a different version of the man's personality. One described him with a German accent, another as a very kind little boy. When Billy was arrested, he was psychologically examined and diagnosed with 24 different personalities. Out of all of these personalities, 2 committed the crime. Billy's case is extremely interesting because he was the first person to be found not guilty due to his condition. Coming up is part of one of his interviews where he talks about how his psychiatric treatment was going. It is believed that by 1988, Billy was able to fuse most of his personalities.
Oh, basically, I'm no different than anyone else. I was sent to Athens on a court order, but they had a specialist down there named Dr. David Call, who is renowned in treating people with my kind of illness. His job was to restore me to a reality sense and to integrate me back into the community as a working, productive citizen and a taxpayer.
Now then, what if I told you that you can comprehend, to some extent, what it's like to have multiple personalities? According to Robert Oxnam, multiple personality disorder is not something so far from normal human experiences. We as individuals usually change our identity depending on the social context we find ourselves in. Surely you act differently when you are at work than when you are with friends or with family. Although you can behave differently depending on context, you are still you. If you gave a name to each of these attitudes or sub-identities, it would be something similar to this condition. According to Robert, this disorder takes it to the extreme. Not only is it about different behavioral changes, but also in preferences and memory lapses. Each person can act differently depending on the situation, but we do not forget what happens, and we maintain control. In the case of the people who have this disease, they generally cannot remember what they did and have no control over these personalities. Remember that this is caused by a defensive mechanism, the brain wanting to protect you from a traumatic event. These types of mental conditions leads us to reflect on what is the human identity. How would it feel to have split personality, and what kind of solutions currently exist for this condition? Tell me what you think about multiple personality disorder. Do you or anyone you know suffer from this mental illness? Thank you all for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And remember, assume nothing and question everything.